You know, if we're trying to study Buddhism, we're sometimes completely lost. We don't know where everything fits. You know, we hear about karma, then we hear about emptiness, then we hear about bodhicitta, and it seems like these random pop-up ideas, and we don't see much relationship between them. But like if you're studying anything, you know, whenever you study, like in music, you start to see the connection between everything, and that's very helpful. And I think especially with Buddhism, especially Tibetan Buddhism, is so confusing. And also we have so many kind of perhaps misconceptions about what actually Buddhism is, you know. So what we're doing here, for those of you who perhaps studying a little bit the teachings, coming to the classes, it's just touching upon each of the points, kind of the bullet points really of the entire path, the points of which we are trying to internalize, that actually, you know, lead us to the getting rid of all the delusions in our mind, which is what Buddha says we can do, and the development to perfection of all the goodness. So it's kind of structured, you know. So let's just contemplate these points, just listen to the degree that it has any meaning, kind of taste it, you know, and make some aspirations at each point. May I understand this? May I realize this? May this make sense? And slowly, slowly, we start to internalize. If we are trying to be a Buddhist, and that's our decision, trying to internalize these points in our daily life, you know. So we just, why not just visualize Buddha in front of us? Like behind me, you know, this is a Thai version of the Buddha, the person who lived in India a couple of thousand years ago, who presented these teachings to us. Just imagine him in the sky, very beautiful, radiant light, golden light, not substantial like a statue, you know, light, very beautiful, golden. And if you can imagine the qualities of a person, try not make it like too much like religion, something mystical. A Buddha is a name for a person who has done the job of perfecting their mind. And the Buddha's view is, the Mahayana view is, that every one of us can do that. It's our potential. It's our natural potential. So it's kind of like visualizing the Buddha like this is reminding us of what we can become. It's like if you want to play tennis, you watch a video of Federer. It's like this, you're visualizing Federer and he's showing you what you can become. So Buddha's kind of showing us. And of course, this statue, it has meaning. Each aspect of it is got a meaning, you know, it's not just some pretty picture. So visualizing the Buddha in front. And if you have a spiritual teacher you feel close to, and you think it's their mind manifesting as the Buddha to benefit you, for your benefit. Golden light in his robe, sitting with his begging bowl in his left hand on his lap, and his right hand is on his right knee. This is kind of called the gesture or mudra of the earth-touching mudra. When he sat down to meditate that day, or whenever he did, you know, under the tree in Bodh Gaya, he determined he would not move until he had achieved the realizations. This is like showing determination, enthusiasm. So he's radiantly beautiful in the sky. Just imagine. Reminding you what you can become. So each of these points, let's just think each one, you know. So the first point, obviously, if you want to become the best tennis player, you need the best teacher, you need the best coach, you need your Federer. So we need to find a human being in this life who looks like us, who speaks to us, who's direct and connects with our heart, who is the embodiment for us of the Buddha. Just to visualize. So thinking, just imagining, if we do have one, then we delighted that we have a person who can show us the Buddha's way, you know, and kind of, this is the first step. And then learn to know the appropriate way to develop a relationship with that person, so you get the best from the relationship. And that means to see them as the Buddha. So then the next step is to kind of encourage us to not want to waste this precious life. So to think of this precious life, we take it for granted. We don't think, oh, aren't I fortunate? All we do is see all the problems and feel miserable. But actually it's like a miracle to have a decent human body with reasonable health, reasonable money in the bank so we're not on the street, reasonable support, so that so we can practice our spiritual path, you know. So this aspiration here is wish not to waste it. Don't waste this precious life. So how do you not waste it? Well, if we understand karma, which comes in a minute in our points, then there's a cause for this human body. It's not just some accident. We created it. We got it. We caused it. So that, you know, so don't waste it means at least use it, at least bare minimum, use this human life to at least not harm others. You know, bare minimum. But we can do more than that. We can develop our mind, get rid of the delusions. We can develop bodhicitta. We can become a Buddha. All of this, we have the resources. We have the resources. We're like 0.00 of the human planet. Not in terms of riches, but in terms of good fortune. So think, I'm not going to waste this precious life. Then we enter into the path, the structures, sort of the points of the path laid out. So the first one is to, then basically the point here is to now increase our wish not to waste this precious life by thinking how it's impermanent and we're going to die. We do not like to think this. It sounds so dramatic. It's a fact. And why think this? Because it energizes us, it galvanizes us into action, it reinforces, it strengthens our wish not to waste this precious life, these precious resources, because they're going to end at some point. And if we see that humans are a tiny percentage of all beings, I mean, if we just even count all the animals, it's trillions. So it's obviously harder to get a human body. You know, this is the Buddha's view. So not to waste it. Even increase our wish not to waste it, because I'm impermanent. It puts perspective. Lama Zopa says, best to think, I will die today. That sounds so ridiculous to us, but it's powerful because it helps you prioritize. You're not going to keep fighting with your mother. What's the point of holding on to all that misery? Worrying about all your problems every second, anxiety never stopping, when you could be dead today. So then what's the conclusion from that is, and at the time of death, at the time that my body and my mind separate, we have to think what is important at that point. It's a practical question. Well, from the Buddhist perspective, the only thing that's of any use to you at the time you die is what's in your mind, because your mind continues. Your body stays in the ground. The mind leaves this body and then due to karma takes another body. That's the Buddha's view. So I want to be ready. So I just need to prioritize. Use my mind as well as I can to give up fears, give up anger, give up the worries, give up all the nonsense. Just focus on doing some practice every day, being a good person, not harming others, bare minimum. Relax, you know. Make the most of this precious life. So then thinking, you know, to really get the methods to do this, I need to rely upon somebody. So here in this framework, we then think of refuge. We rely upon the Buddha and his teachings. I need methods to do this job. So we rely upon the Buddha and his methods, the Dharma. Take refuge. Then we start to practice. This kind of these points priming our mind. Now we start to practice. Now we start to, and the essential practice, the starting point and the basis of our practice from here to enlightenment is to discipline our body and speech and mind. Body and speech first. You know, don't do actions that harm others. Why not? Because everything I think and do and say produces the person I become. So obviously I don't want to kill, steal, lie, badmouth, these things. So it's learning to discipline the servants of the mind. to discipline my body and my speech. And I am the beneficiary of this. Don't doubt it. And I can continue, move to the next level of practice. And now, having subdued my body and speech to some degree, I now have the ability to get to the root of the problem, which is my mind. We become our own therapists, as Lama Yeshe puts it. Sounds very cliched. It's very powerful. We now have, the energy, the enthusiasm, the inspiration, and the beginning to get the skill to now unpack and unravel the contents of our mind, distinguishing between the neurotic states of mind, the fears, the attachment, the aversion, all the other worries and dramas we have in the mind that overwhelm us sometimes. These are not at the core of our being. This is something huge. These are not intrinsic to us. They're not integral to who we are. We believe they are, but they're not. The Buddha's view is they're not. So we have to look into that. So we need to learn to identify what's there by studying the Buddhist model of the mind. Identifying attachment, essentially the main source of the suffering of most beings. The main source of suffering of all beings. So what is it? It's the main voice of the root delusion the Buddha talks about, the root primordial instinctive grasping at a separate sense of concrete me. So subtle. Its main voice is this attachment, primordial dissatisfaction. Then, therefore, because dissatisfied with what I am and with what I have, it can be so severe sometimes, constant dissatisfaction. It just drives us. So naturally, it gives rise to this massive emotional hunger. If you're missing something, then you have to find something, get something, fix something. This is attachment's energy. So we can be attached, the grossest level is attached to the objects of the senses that can overwhelm us sometimes. But the subtler level of attachment is attachment to, basically, attachment is this constant hunger to get what I want every second. To get what I want every second. Attachment can only bear the nice things. It only wants everything to be nice. So attachment is like a manipulator, a control freak. A control freak, that's attachment, trying to make everything perfect. Because attachment only wants the nice things, can't stand the problems. And then when attachment doesn't get what it wants, which is 1,000 times a day, aversion, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, on the more subtle levels, depression and despair. These are the response when attachment doesn't get what it wants. This is so subtle, so constant, so deep in our bones, it's hard to identify it at these subtle levels. That's why we start to subdue the body and speech first, the servants of our mind, and then we can begin to work on the mind. And it's a long-term job, so don't be too impatient with yourself. And the more we become familiar with these feelings and emotions, which are the tip of the iceberg, the more we can dig deeper, drill down, and become familiar with the conceptual story that attachment is, that informs the feelings. Become familiar with the conceptual story that aversion or anger is, that informs the feelings. It's really quite subtle. This is our job, learning to unpack and unravel our own mind. We can mold our mind into any shape we like, as Lama Zopa says. It's our mind. So we need that confidence, but we need patience because it's not comfortable. A friend of mine who's a Buddhist and a therapist, she said, practice is having your hands in your own shit. It's true. But we have to have courage and confidence to understand our minds, knowing that we can change them. We are not set in stone. We need courage. That means we have to want to see our minds, want to understand the attachment, the anger, the fears, the jealousy, the depression, the anxiety. And the key thing is this, the key thing. We notice the feelings when the body's involved. We notice the feelings, but that's gross. We need to understand at a subtler level that all these are conceptual stories deep in the bones of our being that we've practiced for a long time. And the worst part is they are misconceptions. Attachment is a misconception. Anger is a misconception. Jealousy is a misconception. Depression is a misconception. They're exaggerated, distorted assessments. So one powerful practice, when they're arising, when you're feeling that anger and believing that he is horrible, it is terrible, she did this, he did that, and the panic is there. Knowing that aversion is exaggerating the problem. It's hard to see this, but this is the one. We have to learn to not believe the story. This is a powerful step to catch our mind. It's hard to see this. But to not be afraid of our thoughts and our feelings. That's the key. Not to be afraid. Have courage. They're not set in stone. So if these delusions are not intrinsic, then who are we then? Well, what we are actually is our wisdom, our kindness, our empathy, our compassion, our generosity, our patience, our forgiveness, the positive states of mind. These are the source of our happiness. These are the source of pleasure. These are the source of happiness. The others are the source of pain. So by lessening the delusions, we grow the virtues, the goodness, the kindness. We have to practice it. You don't just get to the piano and play Bach overnight. You have to practice. You can't do anything overnight. You have to practice. Here the same. Here the same. It takes time, one day at a time. And then we can move to the compassion wing and really actively practice developing the virtues, developing the wisdom, developing the compassion, and wanting to be of benefit to others. We first have to work on ourselves. Then we're capable of understanding others because we're all in the same boat. So the key here then, let's focus more on this one. The key here, because we have relationships with people, we want them to be healthy. We want them to be useful. So we have to know what it is that makes them not useful, that makes them problematic, and that's the delusions. Whether it's the boss, our friend, our sister, our partner. This is constant practice of distinguishing between the delusions and the positive states. This is unique to the Buddhist approach, very specific. Because attachment is so frantic, so needy, so hungry. It can't stand problems. Or if we have a partner, the slightest change in his behavior can give us complete panic attack. We're watching like a hawk every second. What's he thinking? What's he doing? What's he mean by that? We worry about people all the time, what they're thinking about us. So we have to distinguish in our own mind between attachment and the fears and the aversion and all the projections that come from this, all the ideas we have about what he's doing, what he's thinking. This makes us insane. So we have to distinguish between attachment and love, for example. Love is a virtue. Love is positive. Love is in the second category of states of mind, the positive ones, the useful ones, the ones rooted in altruism and goodness. So love is a delight in someone else being happy, the wish to make them happy. And then on the basis of that, you are kind and say kind words and be helpful and useful and generous and forgiving and patient. But the trouble is, because we're not familiar with our minds, we don't notice the attachment kind of poisoning this. So when love is marvelous, love is a delight in someone else being happy, but we don't notice the attachment completely polluting it, which the attachment is the I-based, frantic, fearful, trying to manipulate the person to do what I want. It's very exhausting, attachment. We have to see the difference between them. They're like totally mixed at the moment. One is I-based, fear-based, frantic, delusional, and one is other-based, valid, reasonable, and spacious. When kindness and love and compassion override attachment and fears, that's why you're happy. That's the cause of happiness, and the mind being relaxed and easygoing. Fear is the taste of all the delusions. They're rooted in fear. Sounds so strange to say this, but check your mind. Whether it's our child or our partner or a friend or a colleague or a person in our lives, we're worried that the deepest attachment we have, the deepest, most primordial attachment, the hardest to see, the last one to go, is attachment to what people think of us. Sounds quite shocking. It completely drives every living being. It's the kind of main, it's almost the main voice of the very ego itself. It's constant hunger, emotional hunger, to be seen in a good light. So we're watching everybody's like a hawk. And therefore the attachment tries to manipulate, to make them approve of us. We worry about the words we say. Every second we're terrified we might say the wrong word, which means they will disapprove of us. This is so instinctive. We don't notice it much of the time. So we're always adjusting our behavior with others in this self-conscious way, to adjust our words and our behavior, and then watching their response to make sure they're smiling at us, they're approving of us, then we're relieved. That's attachment, the deepest one. So subtle. Therefore, we're not authentic. We can't be authentic. We're too afraid to do and say what is right and what is correct. Because we call it, oh, I'm afraid to upset people. No, we're not. We're afraid they won't like us. That's the deepest, most primordial attachment. It stops us from doing and saying, really, we might have the deepest wishes to do something that we really know is the best thing, but we don't do it. We're afraid of what people think. Well, you look at loneliness. Loneliness is attachment. All these chatting in our head, all these conversations in our head, and we're yearning for someone to hear us. We don't think we are valid until someone else hears us. That's why we are lonely, because if there's nobody there, then all these thoughts we have, we think they're not worthwhile. We don't think we're worthwhile unless someone else approves of us. This is the depth of our attachment. The need to be seen and heard and approved of. We need to approve of ourselves, basically. We have all these lovely sayings. We need to become our own person. That's what it means, you know. Knowing our own thoughts, learning to work on our own mind, learning to have self-respect, self-confidence, learning to verify ourselves, learning to approve of ourselves. This sounds so corny, but it is profound. That's the source of happiness. Then compassion and kindness come easily. Anyway, we got lost in attachment. It's time to finish. So we make this aspiration, okay? May I continue to control my body, control my speech, have some discipline, so then I can see my mind. Then I can unpack and unravel these thoughts and feelings and emotions, this big emotional soup in there, and begin to make sense of it, and begin to feel I can be in control of it, that I'm the boss of myself, I'm the boss of my body, I'm the boss of my speech and mind, and that I can mold this mind of mine into the most marvelous person. Then it's easy to help others because we're all in the same boat. So just aspire to do that. We imagine now Buddha sending out powerful beams of white light, yellow light, golden light from his heart that enter into each one of us, enter into us, filling us completely with the blessings of all these realizations, the realizations of this perfect human rebirth, the realizations of impermanence, the realization of understanding the law of karma, the realization of understanding our mind, giving up attachment, and then developing love and compassion and the ability to benefit others. All of this. May I achieve all of this, full of this golden light. And then whether we're going to bed soon or whether it's the middle of the day or the morning, the rest of whatever we've got left, just we'll leave the Buddha there. Imagine the Buddha is all present anyway in the universe, blessing us, protecting us, guiding us, showing us our own potential. And then watching our body and speech like a hawk, because that's what other people see. And then our mind watching it, because that's our, so using your body and speech to help others, and then your mind, which is your business, working on it every second, best we can. Jangchup Semchup Rinpoche, Ma ke panam ke gyuchi ke panyam pa me payang, gongne gongdu pavashok. Maybe never give up. All right, darling people, don't know what happened to that meditation, but maybe there's some useful thoughts there. Okay, never give up on yourself. That's